Hello, and welcome all you wonderful people to our Ellenville Mayoral Debate and Candidate Showcase. I see so many great faces in the audience. This is wonderful. Thanks for coming. I would like to thank Shadowland Stages so much for allowing us to have our event here, especially considering they have a show, as you can see, immediately after our event. So thank you so much, Shadowland, and Brendan, wherever you are. And I also want to thank Carl Weldon Productions for doing our sound. He's amazing, thank you. I am Emily Jane Campbell, the publisher of the Schwalbenville Journal newspaper, best newspaper around. This is our new managing editor, Alec McCabe. For our candidates, we have incumbent Mayor Jeff Kaplan, and we have about how it's going to go. We did a coin toss, and Mayor Kaplan is going to go first with his opening statements, and then we're going to alternate who goes first, answering the questions. We have 2-minute opening statements. Responses can be a minute and a half. Rebuttal 45 seconds. 1-minute closing statements. We're going to try to end all that at like 6:20 so that we can have some audience questions, if there are audience questions. And then the last half an hour, I'm going to call on the village and town board candidates that are here, and I will come to you in your seat. You can stand, and you'll each have about 2 minutes to talk about yourselves, okay? All right, we're going to remain civil, and this is going to be a great informative event. Again, thank you so much for coming. And next month, the Schwalbenville Journal is kicking off our annual fundraising campaign. So we do have a donation bucket in the lobby. If you would like to help us kick off the campaign with a bang, we would appreciate any of your donations, which absolutely help us to keep giving you the news that you count on from us. So again, thank you so much for all your support. And without further ado, here we go.
Welcome, everybody. Mayor Kaplan, your opening statement.
Good afternoon, everybody. I want to first thank the Shadowland also, and thank the Ellenville Journal for Schwalbenville Journal for hosting this. It's great to see so many people interested in the village of Ellenville, and then you came out today. Anyone who came today to see a contentious debate, an argument between two people running for the same office, are in the wrong place. Because Evan and I are good friends. I'm very excited that Evan moved to Ellenville with his wife Zuri, and we were friends before he decided to run. We'll be friends after this campaign, no matter who wins. In fact, I would say that one of the big successes of my administration is that Evan and Zuri moved to Ellenville, because 20 years ago we were not having folks like Evan and Zuri move here. In 2003, when we had a little uptick on real estate, I recall that there was a gentleman who came into Ellenville from Westchester, an investor, said, "Can you show me around Ellenville? I'm thinking of investing." I saw Ellenville through his eyes, and I realized he wasn't investing in Ellenville, and he left and never came back. So we started on a campaign right then to make Ellenville a marketable community. We started with apartments above the storefronts in Canal Street. They had been banned, and because of that, people who owned those buildings did not have the revenue to put back into the buildings. They became run down. We took a year, we put limitations on the apartment dwellers upstairs, but we finally passed it, and as a result of that, we started seeing people put money into those buildings and upgraded them. We also went out and got a grant and redid the whole Liberty Square area and made it what it is today, a place where people come into Ellenville and actually take photographs with the Hunt building, which we also got grants for and helped to renovate that building as well. We also, in terms of the restaurants coming into Ellenville, we went to each one of the people interested in investing here, and they came to the community and got funds from the revolving loan fund. Almost every restaurant in Ellenville started with a revolving loan fund loan.
Red card, let me cut in.
Yeah.
That red card is going to mean we're going to have to wind it up.
Okay. Finally, we took two areas in Ellenville which were in horrendous condition. We made parking parks at the corner of Market and Center, and at the corner where the resident park is now, with private donations. And again, we dressed up Ellenville and made it much more marketable so folks like Evan and Zurich would move here. Thank you very much.
Our scorekeeper, Robin, will hold the yellow card as the time is finishing, and a red card when it's over. Great. We're not going to object either one.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Again, thank you for coming out tonight. Thank you to Ellenville Journal, Shadowland Stages for hosting this. To tag off of what Mayor Kaplan said, it's really about getting people out, getting people involved, and having an open discussion in the public. That's the most important thing. So it's great to see this many people came out. And so my name is Trent. I have been a resident here for 6 years. I was raised about 30 minutes away. I have lived in the Hudson Valley my entire life. I've experienced many of the same changes and challenges all of you have over the decades that came with living here. Ellenville has given my wife and I a chance to keep living in the area that we've always called home. And we hope to do that for the rest of our lives. 2.5 years ago, I had the good fortune of being able to work where I live. I became employed at the Ellenville School District in technology. Previously, I was a partner in a wine and spirit shop downtown Middletown, and before that, after that, I was a sole proprietor providing technology solutions around the New York City metro area. I have to commute down every day, so it's much nicer only being able to drive 2 minutes to work. I had never previously served in an elected position. With that comes a certain sense of responsibility to all of you to not just sit here with the benefit of hindsight. I have attended a large portion of the village meetings over the last number of years and spent a great deal of time researching the history of the village. For many of you, your legacy. To understand the what's and the whys, and so I can help move us forward. I want to work with the board to really define what it means to be a villager and use my skill sets to focus on the issues that mean the most. Thank you.
Extensive list of questions. I'll try to keep it down to a dozen. First question, Mayor Kaplan, in 3 sentences, why do you want to be mayor again?
So, we have some exciting things happening in this community, and I think a lot of them is as a result of the efforts of the board over the last number of years. And I think that we're at a critical point now in this village in which we can go in a couple of directions. And I think that the experience of the current board is extremely important to see those the direction we're going in continue. We're getting great publicity, marketing publicity. There is a learning curve. You know, I'm a better mayor today than I was 4 years ago, and definitely than I was 20 years ago. And I think now is not the time for a change. We have the Cresco project coming in, the Neville project coming in, the terrace, the Borscht. Most of them will attribute the current leadership as reasons why they were encouraged to invest there. And I think it's time that we continue on that road for the time. Thank you.
Thank you. A bit more than 3 sentences. Same question.
Okay.
Boil it down.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it here. And, you know, I think with everything you do, you want to be looking towards the future and planning towards the future. So it's the next 20 years, and how do we prepare ourselves for that? I think there's a lot of legacy issues that have persisted over the years, and I'd like to bring a fresh set of eyes, having looked around at other municipalities to try to, you know, build forward so we don't, you know, tread water in this period of change, you know, like Mr. Kaplan said.
Okay, thank you. Second question, Mayor Kaplan, what are the biggest issues facing Ellenville residents today? Both, I might stress, for longtime residents and for newcomers. And how do you plan to address them?
I would say the main, we want to continue to make Ellenville a more affordable community. One of the issues when I first became mayor was that why live in the village and pay an extra level of tax, let's move into town. And as a result of that concern, we fought very hard as a village to make sure that the town did a revow, and it resulted in a significant reduction of the taxes in Ellenville. I don't hear that argument near as much as I used to, and that to me is a primary, and we will continue to focus on that, make Ellenville an affordable community despite the fact that there is an additional tax you pay to live there.
Mr. Trent, same question?
I have to agree, it's housing. I think that in the last 3 years has become a very critical issue. 5 years ago, frankly, it wasn't an issue as much. It was the homes they couldn't sell within a year. Now, you're lucky to get in the door in one month, they're gone. And so we really need to focus on bringing in projects that are going to improve, housing volume, and that's what I want to focus on.
Next question. And Mr. Trent, I'll give you a chance to answer first. We got word this week that ShopRite, local grocery store, will close in about a year. What kind of effort can you make to draw another grocery store to the plaza?
So, one critical thing is that the ShopRite Plaza is outside of the village of Ellenville. So what I can do, though, is advocate as a community member, as a mayor of a municipality that's nearby, who many of its residents utilize this asset. I think it's kind of figuring out who actually owns the asset, who's taken over. Maybe if there's an opportunity to preserve ShopRite and being there. I mean, it sounds like they're out the door, but it's a year from now, maybe something could change. I think that's the first step, because the reality is Walmart's right down the street. That's going to be a hard thing to sell to a potential investor. But you have to advocate for it. I think that's the key thing, is just really advocating and explaining the necessity of why this could be where Park is about.
Mayor Kaplan, ShopRite?
My wife and I love ShopRite. We're disappointed to hear they're leaving. We knew this a couple of years ago. I had actually contacted management a couple of years ago with ShopRite to see if there was anything we could do to negotiate a lesser lease with the owners at the time. Quite frankly, ShopRite said, we're losing money there, we just can't afford to stay in your community. So in terms of finding another business there, no one's going to open up to lose money. Hopefully the new owner of that property, and maybe with the town, because it is in the town, and the village, assisting in encouraging someone to come in there, can get someone to take their place. But it's going to be somewhat of a hard sell because of the competition of Walmart in the area.
Let me just follow up. So you said a couple of years ago, ShopRite told you they were losing money.
Yes.
And they stuck around for another couple of years, nonetheless.
Well, they had a lease that ended, that's ending, they actually extended it a year, it was ending at the end of 2023, and they're giving us, in effect, notice. Their rental payments were significant. I actually contacted them because a possible new owner of that mall had asked me to intercede to see if we could work out something to keep ShopRite there. And unfortunately, even with a reduction, they were not interested in staying.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, next question, and I'll ask you to answer first. Village parks, Burnwood Park in particular, have been allowed to degrade. How is this allowed to happen?
So, when we created the village of Ellenville back in the 1800s, there was already a town of Warsaw, so there was no tax for living in the village. And then village residents said, we have a population here, a dense population, and we want additional services that aren't provided to the rest of the town. So they took on an additional tax in addition to the town tax, which they still pay. And what happened was the wrong message went out to the town. And the town started treating the village as if it was another town. Our $440,000 that we pay in taxes brought nothing back to us. So all the money from the town for parks and recreations was going into the Littman Park, $0 going into Burnwood Park. We went to the town, we argued with the town that, listen, guys, you have two parks in the town. It's the same folks using both parks. This is not why the village was created. We are looking to consolidate to keep village residents' taxes in line this is where you should be stepping up to the plate. They really didn't listen to us until we got the NAACP involved in this issue, and they said, you know, the park in the town is not servicing the children that live in the village community, and we need you to step up to the plate, and they finally listened to the argument, and that's why now the town is actually contributing as much as the village to make that park, to upgrade that park.
Mr. Trent, your perspective on the program?
Yeah, no, I mean, there's some things I agree with that statement, but there's other things where you have to take accountability. The reality is it's a village asset, just like Sector Memorial Park is. If we continue to add parks, we can't expect the town to start paying for them. So, you know, for me, we should have either had this conversation many years ago to say, how can we give you some sense of ownership over that? So that, you know, there's a legal guideline to how you know, interact with each other through the shared asset, once it becomes a shared asset. You know, we have a Parks Commission, but it really doesn't have any teeth. And that's just really it. It's just saying, is this ours? If it is, then we need to own it. You know, once upon a time, you know, $78,000 went towards youth and rec every year in the budget. Now it's zero. And that's not necessarily due to a decision that was made because of a, you know, a wanted choice, but a reality. So it's, how do we move forward with our realities and own it?
Next question. The next question actually touches on recreation. Do you believe that there's a need for a youth community center in the village? And if so, how would it be funded?
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly become one of the big questions in the last year or two. I'd like to see a joint center if anything does happen. I think our youth and our seniors need something, and I think our seniors have a lot to give to our youth. I gained so much from both of my grandmothers. So if we're really talking about that, I think it needs to be joint before we have any kind of conversation about how to move forward. And I think there's different times of the day when the youth won't be around that it could be a great senior center. But funding it is the big question, and I think that's a longer discussion. If an asset might have been donated, you know, what is now the Borschfeld Museum served as a makeshift youth center. But I think it's supporting the efforts right now that are going on in the town rec department under Milsari. I think she has an understanding of make the programming, and maybe elsewhere statewide we can find funding.
Thank you. Youth center?
Yeah, we are in the village attempting as best we can to create more additional services and options for our youth. For example, when we bought the Steckler Park, we immediately put winter events into us. Now, unfortunately, the winter has not cooperated with that, but hopefully when we start getting snow, we have a great tubing area. 2 years ago, a few weekends, we had as many as 300 kids from our community using that, and it's a great source. So while we're waiting for the plan with the town to get a community center, and of course, operating that center is probably even more important than locating the center. While we're doing that, we have to find other events for our youth to do, and the village is attempting to do that, and we'll continue to work with the town to find more things and activities for our youth to do.
Next question, Mayor Kaplan, and you'll have to respond to this also. You recently warned that the Clinton Avenue Bridge is in dire need of repair. It's urgent, which is the word you used. According to the DOT regional research, the bridge is actually owned by the village, putting a large part of the responsibility onto the village. What could either one of you, and please answer first, do as mayor to ensure that this key thoroughfare can be made safe?
Sure. The bridge basically was damaged by one of our floods, and as a result of that, it was put on the list for funding with the federal and state government. The cost of repair is approximately $325,000, of which $16,000 is the responsibility of the village. So we first had to wait for our bridge to get reached for that funding, because we, quite frankly, could not have paid for it without the federal and state support. We now have that funding in place, and we are moving forward with our engineers At worst, that bridge will be repaired sometime during the next summer when we get all of our ducks in a row in terms of what engineering is required. But it is a priority, and in the meantime, we're going to use whatever efforts we can to make it safe for the kids that walk over that bridge and for the traffic on that. We are looking into making that a one-way bridge with lights on both sides until the bridge is placed, so it will be safe for use until it is repaired.
Thank you. According to my notes, that was first flagged for repair by the DOT almost a decade ago. Mr. Trent, any thoughts on getting that progress started a little faster, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, in that situation, again, this is one of those hindsight situations, so it's easy for me to sit here and say this would, this is something I would have done, but, advocating. A lot of bridges throughout the state, the country are flagged in disrepair. It's a kind of a prolific issue facing the country in general. I look at it like all we can do now is move forward. We have to focus on what we can do from a preventative standpoint, especially when it comes to the bridge replacement project that will hopefully occur at some point. They did an engineering report at the village a couple of years ago where they did a presentation on the replacement of the bridge. And something that I pointed out in that meeting to the engineer on site, and I asked a question, was they're going to use a precast concrete bridge, which has become very popular. But there's one downside to them, is that in the event that they're struck, they tend to critically fail. Whereas a steel I-beam bridge typically can be repaired. The engineer said, yes, that's correct. Precast concrete bridge will typically fail in that case, and there's not much you can do to repair it. So in that situation, I might have, if I was in the position, advocated more hardly for a steel I-beam bridge. They're a little bit more expensive, but when you look at the long-term durability of the project, it might be better suited for municipalities that can't properly maintain them, which is frankly a lot of municipalities. It's not a thing of just Ellenville.
Great, thank you. Next question. Mountain money bought the golf course. While it does pay its own way, residents question the value of golf in this mixed economic community, which tubing proved expensive and unreliable. What can be done to open the park to more diverse visitors and also be affordable?
That park has issues in accessibility. I think if you see how many kids walk or bike to school, you can't expect them to go step foot in Memorial Park right now, at least not in our current environment of lawsuit-heavy, people. We have no sidewalks leading to it. It's pretty much on the far corner of the village. I think you have to work on accessibility first before you even look at, trying to get kids up and over there. I'd love to see at least a walking or running path that runs the perimeter defined. I'd like to see more events, it's at least in the straddle seasons when they're outside the golf course operations. There's potential, but I think it just needs to be reimagined for what it can be.
Thank you. Mayor Kaplan?
Yeah, the golf course has become a tremendous asset for the village of Ellenville and the town of Warsaw. A few years ago, that property was earmarked to become a housing project. I recall Joe Steckler Jr. And myself standing in the parking lot and looking over that property and saying this has to remain open space. So the people at Chewanga Country Club initially went to the town. The town said, sorry, we didn't have the money. They then came to the village, and we felt that it was worth the shot of at least discussing this with village residents. We had a couple of public meetings and hearings to hear their position. We then put it up for vote, and the vote was overwhelmingly in favor of purchasing the golf course. It's been a terrific asset for the village. It brings a huge number of people outside of the area into the village. On any day you can find the golf course packed with cars from outside of the area that then will go into the community and use our restaurants and other facilities. So it's really been a very plus for us. All you have to do is go up there and see how beautiful it is and see what a shame that would have been to lose that and make it into just a housing complex.
For the next question, let's stick with housing for a moment. Where could there be more affordable housing in the village? And how can we encourage more of it?
So since I've been in office, we've spent a lot of time focusing on affordable housing. Busker Gardens came in during my administration. The Buttermilk Farms project came in my administration. We were about to have the old General Sport we're building with a second floor of 23 apartments coming in during my administration as well. So we work very hard on opening up as much housing as we can in the village for people to make that housing affordable so that we can service the people that actually live there already. Obviously, there's a lot more space in the town outside of the village. We're happy to work with the town to find additional sources, but again, we have limited open areas where you can have large housing complexes within the village. We're doing our best with the assets we have to increase our housing stock.
And Mr. Trent, from your perspective, are we doing the best with the assets we have? How can we push for more affordable housing?
Yeah, so I mean, when we talk about affordable housing, there's a lot of different types of affordable housing, and one area that I like to really focus on is affordable ownership, because that's true long-term affordable housing. That alleviates pressure on rental properties. You know, you get people who 5 years ago could have stepped into a home and could live there for the rest of their lives, who have now been shut out of the market. I think it's looking at single-family homes. It's, you know, can we control if they're being converted into rentals or not? It's looking at how do we bring more projects like Buttermilk Falls. You know, I agree. I think that was a great project, Mayor Kaplan. I want to see more of it. You know, that's a perfect partner to bring in for something like that. You know, it's just, it's volume. You need units coming online to alleviate pressure so people have somewhere to live. And giving another generation of Ellenvillers a chance to stay or come back, and that's the key thing. Otherwise, the next 20 years, it's not going to matter.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the dissolution of the village. And we use that word carefully. Dissolution is what would have to happen if we embarked on a path toward consolidation with the town. The village would in fact be dissolved. And I know many of you have had questions about this process. I thought we'd take the opportunity to ask both of our guests here tonight. Do you think the village could dissolve and then consolidate with the town? Why? How would we handle the police force if the village were to dissolve? What are the implications for cannabis, since the village has opted in by default and the town actually opted out?
Yeah, so I mean, that's maybe the most complex question we're going to have tonight. It's a question that's been asked in this community long before I was born, and probably will be continued to ask until it ever happens. I, right now, don't see a way forward. I think the complexities of it would be dramatic. It doesn't happen generally. I can't recall the last time a municipality in the state of New York did it. Rosendale did it almost 50 years ago. But I do have a couple of red lines with it. It's dead. And we've kind of had some get out of jail cards that we've been able to use. 10 years ago, it was using $1.2 million of the mountain money. 2 years ago, it was using $600,000 of the American Rescue Plan funding that we received. And that's money that could have been used for other things, but instead we have to use it for debt. If debt continues to spiral out of control and this municipality is not manageable in the long term, we have to seriously consider it. That's, my responsibility to make that hard decision, to put it out to the people, to educate, to say, we're going to have to navigate all of these tough issues because this may not be sustainable. It may, you could have a municipal bankruptcy in the long term. And also, the other red line is services. If our services degrade to a point where they are not any better than the town, I feel like the village loses a lot of its purpose. And that's what I want to run on, is making the village have that purpose still, better services.
Resolution?
Yeah, there's a little difference in the language. The village can dissolve, and it's not a question of consolidation. Consolidation is really taking the programs from the town and consolidating with the village while the village still exists. Dissolution basically is saying there's no more village, town, it's your responsibility. So the first real issue is the police department. There's no such thing as a police district in the state of New York. In fact, they're illegal. So if the town were to take over and there'd be no village, there'd be no village police department, and there'd only be a town police department if the town agreed to make it a town-wide police department, otherwise no police. I firmly believe, and one of the reasons I live in a village is because I'm more comfortable with the police department within such a densely populated area. I mean, just when I was on vacation now, the alarm goes off in my house. Within 5 minutes, there was a police car there. Not because I'm the mayor, but because we have a police department in Ellenville. If you were up in Elster Heights, you're looking at a half hour, 45 minutes before anyone's going to respond to that. I like that difference. The police department makes our schools safer. We all hear the stories about these crazy shooters. It's so great to have a police department within a few blocks of the school to be able to respond to it. Our street department does a great job on snow removal. We have a pre-storm program. We clear the streets immediately. We don't use dirt on our streets, so our streets stay nice and clean. It helps our storm drains as well. You can't do that in town. We do a brush and lawn removal twice a year in the village. The town can't afford to do that, and yet in the village, what would you do if you couldn't put your brush there twice a year and get rid of it that way? So there are advantages to a village that we would lose if we dissolve. Consolidation, absolutely. We've continued to discuss consolidation of services with the town, which quite frankly should be happening more because that was not the purpose of a village. Again, the village was just really created to do densely populated issues. And a lot of issues that the village has now taken on really should be at town-wide expense.
We could talk forever on that. I want to move the conversation along a little bit with a related topic. Leaving aside dissolution, whatever language you want to use in that case, what plans do you have for a better working relationship with the town? And what kind of examples could we think of for savings?
Sure. Well, again, the village pays about $440,000 in town taxes. When I became the mayor, I can tell you the services provided to the village residents by the town was zero. It's taken a lot of fight, a lot of time to get the town to realize that people in the village aren't just here in November to vote for town candidates, that the rest of the year they are still town residents. Of late, we have gotten a better relationship. The park is a great example where the town is now using its funds along with village funds to help increase the benefits to the kids. We did away with a village court. It was really silly to have two courts a half a block away from each other, and that's been another savings for village residents. So we continue to look at this issue to find ways to work with the town and to make the village more affordable.
Okay. Trent, you want to respond to that? How can we fix town-village relations?
Yeah, I think it starts by coming in a neutral position. It's, looking at issues and saying, what do we have in common? What are the things that are keeping us apart? And coming in with real data. It's going back to the Bourbon Park issue. It's taking ownership of the things that are ours and then approaching and saying, we're all in this together, but how can we work together? It's advocating, it's showing just basic understanding of, this is something that we can work on versus something I don't want to work on it with you because we have, 20 years, 30 years of legacy not doing it.
Moving along, this is a question for you, Mayor Kaplan, and you're welcome to respond, but it is directed at Mayor Kaplan given his position. You are, of course, a local attorney. You have clients who have business before the village and or the town. How have you managed conflicts of interest as they arise?
Well, first of all, in the village, I've never appeared in the village in any shape, form, or manner for any client of mine. Residential purchases of property don't involve the municipality, and that's the primary part of my business in the village. I have represented people in the town where there isn't a conflict that want to subdivide a property or open up a business. I don't do that in the village. So I don't really see the conflict. If there is an issue and somebody comes to me and wants to do something in the village, I basically tell them they have to find somebody else.
Do you comment on this?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm ever in a position where there might be a conflict, I remove myself. You know, if there's anything that might come up for a vote in, Board of Trustees meeting, you remove yourself. I have no hesitation to do that. I think it's one of the most critical things that we do is to acknowledge when we might have some kind of preconceived notion of what should be based on something that could benefit us.
Mr. Trent, moving on, the question number 12 here. What is being done about back taxes that are owed to the village? They're being sent to the county. Are we seeing that money?
To be honest, I thought this was still tied up in a lawsuit. I know it's been advocated for a number of years. The Ulster County legislator, John Rivera's, argued for it, and I think if we have it, the lawsuit clears. But at the same time, I look back and say, what could we have done 7 years ago? You have one tax auction every number of years. It doesn't have to even be 5 years. It just sets a precedent that people understand that this is something that will happen. You will have to pay eventually. It solves 80% of the problem, and that saves us from incurring, all of us, villagers have to bear the debt of those taxes that aren't paid. We carry it forward every single year. So I would have done something sooner.
Okay.
Yeah, after years of arguing with the county that the county should be making the village whole, just like every county within the state of New York, with the exception of 2 or 3 counties, the counties finally stepped up with the help of legislator Gavars, and is now making the village whole. It should have done it years ago. Basically, as a result of that, this is a non-issue now. We will be getting the funds as they're billed, and if not, then the county will make us whole. So it was a great win for the village. We've been pushing this issue for years, and we finally got it.
Okay. With about $1 million left of the amount of money, how should we spend the rest?
Well, there's approximately $1.3 million left. There is a trust fund that was established in the late 1990s, in which that fund was to remain in trust for 30 years. So it's coming near the end. In 2028, those funds will come out of the trust. While they still remain in the trust, any monies that are spent have to go before a public referendum and be considered by the public before you can touch the money. In the meantime, it does assist in reducing taxes because the interest we make off that money goes into the general fund and helps offset some of the expenses the village has. In terms of where we should use that money, I believe that Parks and Recreation is a key area for that because we actually sold a mountain that didn't go away. It's still sitting up there very nicely, prim and proper. We have somebody maintaining it for us. We get tax revenue on it. So it's really a great feat for Ellenville to have that purchased by the Parks Association and being maintained by it. While we're waiting till 2028, I think we should continue to look at different things to improve the village and in particular Parks and Recreation.
What would you do tonight?
Well, the first thing that we do is extend it. The original law allows for up to a 20-year extension of the original fund. That period of time, it's a 2-year look back from when it expires, which is approximately 2028. So in the next 4 years, we'll have the opportunity to do that. And I want to give every single village resident that chance to make that decision to say, let us have the choice of what it gets used for, not disappear into the general fund. For me, it's use it finally, for our future. That is our youth fundamentally. I think the golf course is a great asset, but I also now want to see some of the money used towards, park. I don't think that's a lot to ask for. It's something that the village used to be able to. Finances have changed, but that money is kind of an investment into our future. It always has been. So I'd like to see that continue.
Okay, moving on. Ellenville has a lot of churches for such a small village. What's your plan to return and or keep commercial buildings commercial? So they can bring in much needed tax dollars, tourism, and services for people who live.
Many of our religious organizations in the village, they may be taking up buildings, but a lot of them provide, a sense of comfort for people that they can't find anywhere else. They do step in and provide community events. I know a number of the churches host youth events, and I think that's an important thing. I get the balance, and I understand it's a really tough question to answer because there's a lot of state laws that prevent it. You're discriminating against, certain types of organizations, and I would think religious group is probably the most key one that we don't discriminate against. I certainly want more businesses to come in. It's just going to be a fine balance we're going to have to play as we go forward.
Very difficult issue. The federal and state laws really protect religious organizations. If they want to come into a building and you say you can't come in, you're really looking at a lawsuit. The only thing that we can do and we're working on is to help prevent a church from making buildings around it unusable for restaurants that then need a wine or liquor license to exist. We've had that issue in Ellenville for a while. Fortunately, if it's a rental and not a purchase, the law will now allow us to say that you don't need a permission from a rental church to open up a restaurant with a beer, wine, or liquor license. So that's the concern. In terms of saying we're going to ban a church from going into a certain area, you're just not going to be able to do it. That's not a local issue.
The final question that we have for you before we move on to final statements and then questions from the audience. We have had 4 village treasurers by our town come and go since 2017. How can either of you ensure that we have continuity in this very important role?
The treasurer role is one in which many communities are having difficulty keeping treasurers. It's a very important role. It's a very specialized role. And what we found, for example, you said 4 treasurers, we hire a treasurer. The person that just lost that treasurer says, we weren't paying this person enough, and the next thing we know, they double the salary and the treasurer's out of the building again. We now have several treasurers that are interested in coming to the village. Hopefully we'll get a good one this time, but it's very difficult to find treasurers to stay in place in this environment. But we hope this time around it's going to be one that will last.
Mr. Trent, how do you solve the treasurer arms race?
Well, I think what we can do is give ourselves the best foot forward on a situation like that. I mean, it's hiring. It comes back to fundamentals. It's how you're seeking out candidates. It's using 2023 kind of, ability. Indeed.com, I was at a village meeting and it was brought up 6 months later that maybe we should do something like that. I understand, hiring is hard, but we don't help ourselves if we're not using every mechanism available to us. I think it's about creating a great perception of the village. There's a lot of great people who work at the village. I've had a chance to meet them. They welcomed me into the community when we had questions. And you want to do everything you can to support the people that, work under you. And that's, really communicating better so that outside candidates may look at this municipality and say, that's a place I want to work. Instead of, the negative perception of maybe that's not a place I do want to work. And so I think those are 2 things we can control. And, like Mayor Kaplan said, it's a hard hiring market right now, but I think we can do a little bit better.
Great. Thank you both very much.
Before we get to closing statements, just raise your hand and I'll come if you have any questions. If there's any audience questions, I'll give you a pen and a, yep, I knew there was, yes. Yep, there you go.
Amberly, make her round.
Anybody? Question? Yes, yes.
Wow, we're gonna have to do this again.
Yes, yes. All right, maybe we'll wait, maybe we'll do questions and then we'll.
No. Down in front.
No, that's okay.
She has to review them.
Okay, for each of you, let's keep these pretty concise. We covered a lot of ground, but I want to give each of you an opportunity for closing statements. Should we say 2 minutes? Why don't you go first? Closing statement.
It's been a great opportunity to speak to all of you. I think this is the best thing that's come out of this is just having an open discussion with everybody. The more we do that, the less walls we have between all of us. So thank you for everybody who's come out. Thank you for everybody who's kind of been going to these different events all throughout the town, the village. NAACP had a phenomenal turnout for Meet the Candidates Night. I will tell you, I don't have all the answers, but I will search relentlessly for them. That is something that I live for. I'm a data-driven kind of person. I don't get attached to ideas. The most important thing is the right thing. And that's what I will do for the village of Ellenville. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone for coming out and this opportunity to speak to you about the issues that are facing Ellenville. I believe that Ellenville is now in the best position it has ever been in the last 40 or 50 years, and I think a lot of it is as a result of the efforts that we have done in village government. 20 years ago, you could have compared Ellenville to Liberty, Fallsburg, and Monticello. I offer any of you to drive through any of those 3 communities and compare them to Ellenville, and you'll see the efforts of our administration and what we've done. I look forward to another 4 years. I believe it's a critical period, and as I've said to you before, I believe I'm a better mayor now than I was 20 years ago and even 4 years ago, and that it's not a time now to replace with the great things that are happening in our community.
Thank you very much. Okay, we do have a number of questions coming in from the audience. Bearing in mind that we do have to be out of here for the production that will start this evening.
That's okay, go ahead.
Okay. All right. None of these have names attached. Don't be screaming, don't worry. And some of you have fantastic handwriting.
There's more.
All right.
Everybody.
Quick question. Parking. We do have increased activities such as the Portugal Museum, coming to see that, festival, museum, should be there. How can we accommodate increased parking?
20 years ago, I said, I'm committed to one thing, that someday we'll get a question like that, you know? There was a time you could have taken a bowling ball and rolled it down. There are people that seem to feel that front of the place that you're going to. And that's just not the case. Parking on the side streets if you go to it. You know, we're running out of municipal parking lots. We rent a portion from a private owner in the middle of town. One of the ways that we will, if we continue to have the problem, is tell merchants, as years ago we did it, that they have to park on Maple Avenue and they can't use up parking spaces because we need more of them. But again, I love the question, I love the problem.
Yeah, like Mayor Kaplan said, it's a great problem to have. In Middletown, when we had our business, parking was a significant issue, just the same. We have one municipal lot. We tried for years to see if they could expand it. It's tough to do. I think there's a lot of avenues we could approach, maybe at the school. I think the back lot there could be a walkable lot for a lot of people. But I want to support businesses too that might have a shorter duration. You know, you think of the wine store on Main Street. They might need only like a 15-minute parking spot in front of their store. So that might be an avenue on a case-by-case basis that we can support businesses in a selective way to see, you know, be reasonable and be flexible, depending on the need.
Okay. Question here about the undead. Do you have a plan for zombie properties?
Yeah, zombie properties, that is code enforcement. I mean, that's, you know, really using the laws that we have already and maybe focusing on the ones that we can tighten up. I think it's really looking at, you know, for our deadbeat property owners and doing something about it. You know, a lot of times they owe back taxes, and that's the advantage of having a tax auction every number of years. You might be able to get those properties or get them to pay and do something with it. You know, maybe we find a fee structure to start charging derelict properties, get them out and get them into the hands of people who can do something with it.
One of the ways to deal with deadbeat owners and zombie properties is to create a land bank. The county has created that. We're hoping to work more with the county in purchasing these properties and then selling them to be revitalized. It is somewhat difficult when you have a bank that continues to pay the taxes on these vacant properties so that we don't have an opportunity to sell them at a tax sale. And unfortunately, on none of these properties, and I still can't figure out why the banks pay for it. We have one on the street I live in, and the bank has thousands and thousands of dollars into a property that they're making no efforts to sell it. So a property like that may at some point come up for sale. But again, we need a plan for something like a county land bank to do that.
Okay, thank you. You know, as an editor, I love learning stuff. This week I edited a story about a sewer plant that involved a long explanation of what sludge is. I won't go into the details, but there's a great quote: sludge is complicated. Sludge is complicated. But as we reported, the sewer plant is held together with, quote, string and bubble gum. That's what the engineer said. And it will cost something like $6 million to repair. How are we going to do that?
Well, it's a great time to have a problem with a municipal asset like a sewer plant because there is money out there. We have retained Delaware Engineering. They put together a report on what we need to do to upgrade that sewer plant. We're going to use that report to then go out and get funding to do the repairs that we estimate will be around $6 million. But at the end of the day, obviously, you need a sewage in a densely populated area. We're going to get this thing fixed. There were some issues on the first engineering job that was done that now have to be repaired. But I believe we've now found the issues that have to be resolved. We will get the funding, and this is going to be done.
Sewer plant?
Yeah, I think sewer plant comes back to you've got to go into it doing the right thing the first time because you end up with expensive fixes later on. I love looking at structures and understanding engineering behind them. I am not an engineer, but I know how to ask critical questions in those situations. I think in that situation, I would have asked, why are we putting a hard surface under what needs to be a drying bed, where you need water to permeate through the ground? That is a huge issue of why we can't have the capacity that we're supposed to. When you see paint peeling off the side of a cinder block building, It's permeability. It means there's a moisture issue on the inside. That could have been identified early on. I think there was a lawsuit against the original company, but maybe in the design phase, it's something that I might have been able to point out and at least ask the question so that they could provide an answer. And now we have to deal with the situation as it is, and it's a $6 million fix.
Keep reading the journal for more on sludge. Question from the audience. Ellenville revitalization has included a museum, upgrades to buildings and restaurants. But how do the most vulnerable members of our community benefit from these kind of improvements? And how do we help the most vulnerable, the elderly, say?
One of the key goals of our administration is to integrate the new folks with the folks that are here already. We're selling community to the new people that are moving into this area, and that's because of the people that are here already. Having grown up here among people of all races, creeds, colors, everyone got along. That's what we're selling. We'll continue to sell that, and we are very sensitive that as new people come in, that there's room for the people that were here before. Integration rather than gentrification is what we're all about.
Vulnerable?
Yeah, I think it's recognizing, the Bushville Museum is a phenomenal new asset to the village. A lot of these different projects that are coming up are great. But it is recognizing who the people here, who the people have been here, especially the youngest ones, where they don't necessarily get a choice or have the opportunity to make a decision. It's about giving them ownership by listening. And I think that's where you get back to Burn Road Park and saying, we need to invest in that. That needs to be the same kind of priority as the golf course is. Those are the kind of things we can do as a community, and the community is all of us in this room. It's how do we give our time back to the people that need our help the most, and that's what I want to see is a new kind of volunteerism that Ellenville's always had. I just want to bring that forward.
Okay, you mentioned the golf course. Why is the golf course only paying its way? Why isn't the goal to make it profitable and actually add substantially to village revenue? Why doesn't the golf course committee report at village board meetings?
So I think there's two issues. One, we don't have the exact numbers anymore. Up until about 2001, it was reported separately as part of the treasurer's report, and since then that doesn't really occur anymore. So we don't know. I know that a $75,000 loan or bond was motioned at an April meeting this year for the golf course to get it open and operational for the year. I think it was to serve as a bridge loan, but it wasn't clarified. So I think we need to take a deeper look at what is the operation of the golf course, how can we work to make it either more profitable, or how do we just make it work so it doesn't take away from other things. When you have to take out a $75,000 loan, we bear all the risk of that as villagers.
Why is the golf course only paying its way?
Yeah, well, first of all, the primary goal of this golf course is to make it affordable for our local community. Our local community can't afford $75 green fees that you're paying at the roundout course that just opened up. We have the most reasonable golf prices, and as a result of that, our local folks are able to golf. And that's really what the golf course is about, giving an opportunity for people that live in the town and the village to be able to play. Now, with regards to that $75 loan, that loan was basically put there because we needed to upgrade the equipment. We're making money that can pay off that loan from the golf course, but to use all the money and just pay cash for everything we're getting was just silly. Using that note to upgrade the equipment and then paying off the note through the revenue of the golf course is just a smart way of operating the business. So it has no problem as far as it affecting the village funds. It really pays for itself, and it allows us to buy better equipment now and help upgrade that course. And people that play there are just amazed on the condition that course is in, and we'll continue to make sure that it is a prize for the village and a great asset.
So I think what's important to recognize too is that, again, kind of coming back to my opening statement, what does it mean to be a villager? And I think when you go to a golf course that's municipally owned, and not a lot of municipalities are doing that, certainly not stressed villages, that we need to make it a benefit more than just saying it's a low fee. If you're a town resident, if you live in a greater area, you pay the same price. If you're a villager, you don't get any discount. If you go snow tubing, there's no discount. So again, we bear all the risk, but there's no advantage of us living in this village and having that property. So that's what I want to see, is a better advantage to villagers.
Very quickly, the 2 mean is $10 a person. Basically, all we're trying to do is make that work for itself to get as many kids out there. We want to increase the price, you'll just have less kids using it. In terms of
discount.
In terms of the discount, that brings again the issue of the village and the town. Are we just going to give the discount to the village? We really can't give it to the town the way it is. So the bottom line is that we don't want to start a civil war between the town and the village, and we will if we start making the prices different between people that live in the village and outside the village or within the town.
We're being red carded here, so we're going to move on. Thank you, Rob. Okay, next question is specific to you. Somebody out there wants to know whether you, in your role as an attorney, has helped create an LLC for Ellenville property owners, and then this LLC becomes delinquent in the property taxes. Have you had any clients that happened to?
It's really hard to understand the question because it's just a question. LLCs are just a way that people buy property and limit their liability. But in terms of the taxes continue to be owed on those properties and they get paid. So I'm not sure what the basis of the question is.
The question is whether one of your clients who created an LLC to buy property is now delinquent on the taxes.
I would say that those taxes are paid on a regular basis, and as we said, we were working to get, and we have now, all properties will be paid timely, made whole by the county, regardless of who owns it.
Thank you. Any thoughts on that?
No, yeah.
Okay. We've talked about in a number of different ways about our crumbling infrastructure. One thing we haven't mentioned so far is something somebody out there wants to know. Lighting. Street lighting. We've all seen this, I think. How would you fix our street lighting?
Take them away from me.
That is, you're going to have to dig it up and you're going to have to fix it. And it's about prioritizing what's important. And, street lighting is an important thing. I think our, highway department, our municipal workers do a great job with what they're given. It's a tough thing when you have an aging infrastructure. That was an opportunity where maybe that $600,000 in ARP funds, if it wasn't paying for debt, could have gone to something like that.
The real issue on street lighting, which we've looked at a number of times, is whether we can bury the lines, because that would really improve the downtown area. It is an expensive proposition. We continue to look at that, and we attempting to find ways to find grant money that will do that. I think that really would be a big plus for Ellenville to get street lighting on a post or street level rather than on the high globe that is there now.
Let me ask you something that cuts probably a little close to home. Up where I live in Marpletown, our town supervisor was trying to extend his term by another 2 years. How do you feel about this?
I would say that they have their place and time. I do know that in a small community like this, there is a benefit to having continuity. Again, there's a lot of good projects and programs that have started. I can tell you just yesterday, for example, there was a conference call with Cresco. The CEO of Cresco said, "I really appreciate your running again, Jeff. Thank your wife for me for allowing to let you run again because we need you to get to the finish line." this kind of project, just as an example, needs a Democrat at times to reach out to our county, to reach out to our governor, and I've been very helpful in this project, even though it's not in the village, as the mayor, to get this project off the ground. And you'll hear numerous times appreciation from the Cresco CEO and management team, both for the town and the village, even though, again, the village, the plant is not in the village, but we've made great efforts, both as a board and individually, to get this project there.
I do want to return to Cresco, but first, term limits.
Term limits, I think if I were to be elected, I would George Washington it and say 2 terms. You know, that would be it for me. I think maybe you wouldn't have to block yourself out forever, but I think it's good every number of years to have fresh perspective come in. I can understand the point of, you know, continuity, but you can't get people involved if they don't have a chance to run, and, you know, feel like they can be seen, and sometimes just having a break in the gap. Even if I thought I could do something good, I'd probably want to step away.
Like, last question.
Okay.
Last question.
Last question. Okay, let's go to Cresco. Cresco, as we reported this week, they got a $25 million mortgage for a piece of land that's got nothing on it. Have you heard what they're actually going to do with that money?
Well, the question is wrong. There is something on it. There is a $50 million plant on that property now. That plant will be operational in short order, and the reason that it hasn't been is because of the number of dispensaries in the state has been very limited today. They're opening up the number of dispensaries. We hope within the next few months to have anywhere from 80 to 120 jobs starting in that plant. In terms of the cultivation area that they're hoping to start building on, the $25 million will not do that. But what we need more than anything is for the state to approve of the cultivation plant here in Ellenville, and then construction will start as long as the Safe Banking Act is passed at the federal government so that they can borrow money at a reasonable rate.
Final thoughts on Cresco?
Yeah, I mean, any employer coming to the area, we should be hopeful for. I know this community has struggled with the lack of jobs. You know, I think Mayor Kaplan summed it up, what's going on. It's pretty much a play-by-play for it. You know, fundamentally, they haven't been able to secure funding, so they're taking an asset that they had, mortgaging it, and taking that money back out and reinvesting. And, you know, that's a good sign. That's a commitment that they're going to continue with the project.
Thank you very much. Thanks to everybody who came.
From the town and village candidates that are here in the audience. We're going to start with the village. I know that Raymond Younger is not here. He told me he wasn't going to be able to make it, and also John Horrell is not here. Alan Coombe, I saw you. There you are, babe. Okay. Yes, I'm sorry. I call everybody. I you. No. Okay, so we're going to give everybody 2 minutes, and this is Alan.
Hi, good evening. I'm Alan Coombe, if you haven't met me. This is great that you came out and did this, Evan and Jeff. Great job. And just looking forward to this election. We're coming down to the wire, and I'm excited for all the options that everyone has this year. Some new names thrown in the hat. I would be working really hard for the village, and this is a big opportunity for me to step in and actually provide something back to the community. So I don't really want to get too much into the specifics, but I'm excited to work for you.
Samantha Ellis is over here. Hi. Yes, so you're voting for 2 out of 4.
Hi, I'm Samantha Ellis. I actually have been on the board for the past year as a fill-in for Oliveris, and his term is up and I'm rerunning. I actually home raised here, left the village, came back, and I, like other people, want, I have a new set of eyes. I'm young, I'm getting into politics, I just want change. I'm here for the youth, I want to give back. I want to be an advocate for our youth, for our elderly, for minorities, for young people, for people moving in, and I'm thankful to run again, and hopefully you'll re-elect me to be on the board. I don't want to go into details, but thank you, and I appreciate everybody's Then we're going to move on to the town board, and we're going to start with our incumbents, and let's start with Cassie Spore. I am. Hello, my name is Cassie Spore. I currently sit on your town board. I've been there for 3 years. I'm excited to run again, and I'm hoping to garner your support in the next week, or we start really going on the 28th. We have 187 miles of road in the town of Warsaw, and it astounds me, but I think I've driven all of them this election season and tried to knock on as many doors as I can and meet all of you. I'm hoping that I've done a good enough job to get your vote. We've had flat taxes for the last 3 years, and we're looking to try and do that again. Our budget is in the preliminary stages. Final budget will be delivered to the county by the 17th of November. Budget season was hard this year, but I think we've done a good job at being good stewards of your money, and I look forward to keep doing that in the coming years. I had a lovely day today. I got to spend it with the seniors at the Tree Resident building. I had lunch with them today. It was a delightful way to spend my day, and I got to listen to some of their needs and their wants, and I hope we continue to do that in the future through the rec department, and so please come out and vote, and I look forward to serving you next year. Paul Rosalino is our other incumbent.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for attending. It's great that this audience is packed, practically. It's packed like when we have a show here. My name is Paul Tozzolino. Jeff talked about experience. Experience, I think, really does matter. And I've been on the board now for 4 years. Prior to actually being on the board, I actually started going to board meetings, workshops, and found out and learned everything I could about the town before I even ran. A couple of things that we talked about today was a lot of infrastructure type things. As being a board member, we're responsible for certain liaisons. Actually, Cassie and I are responsible for the water and sewer districts that are outside the village. So if any of you are residents outside the village that live in the New Warsaw Water District, that's what we've spent probably most of our 4 years of our life working on right now. So infrastructure is really important. Transparency of government is really important, something that I'm very proud of, especially when COVID hit. We basically had to figure out how to reinvent government a little bit, and I was responsible for getting the town's YouTube channel up and running, getting the town's Facebook up and running, getting the Channel 23 to be more informative for everyone that's here in the room so that we can communicate with the people. As Cassie mentioned, we've had 0% tax increases virtually for the 4 years that we've served. There's a lot more to still go on. We didn't talk about the Neverly project, but we've been, as a town board, very heavily involved with the Neverly project, the Cresco project. I know we're in discussions with actually talking to the people that own the ShopRite building as well as ShopRite themselves, and I think we need to first find out what's really going on, by the way, with ShopRite. I think there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I can assure you that as a town board member and as a town board, we're going to work very, very hard to make sure that no matter what goes on there at ShopRite, we're going to make it right for the people and residents of this town. Thank you.
Joe Steckler III. There you go.
My name is Joe Steckler III. I'm running for town council. One of my main focuses since the start of my campaign has been to emphasize the need to attract businesses that can provide local jobs. Throughout the past 2 months of the campaign, I've interacted with countless residents that have echoed that same need. But last week, we were all made aware of the terrible news that our local grocery store is closing. First and most importantly, from the perspective of a local resident, people will lose their job, period. People will struggle to provide for themselves and other families. Oftentimes, I've seen ShopRite employees arrive by foot, bicycle, car, or cab. Even if a job is offered in another location, what's the plan to get them there? What's the plan for our senior citizens to grocery shop? And in our area, over 20% of our people don't have vehicles. What's our plan? From the perspective of a real estate professional, I'm concerned about what's next to that location. commercial real estate has forever changed since the pandemic. There aren't many business models that are designed for sustainable success in a location of that size in comparison to our population. I'm also very worried about the ripple effect it'll have on the other tenants in that development. Lastly, from the perspective of a town candidate, I am that much more motivated to serve the people and to get to work with local boards and developers to bring back our local jobs. I'm committed to maintaining and improving the quality of life for all residents. We all deserve the opportunity to enjoy life and to grow old in our area. Early voting starts this Saturday. Elections November 7th. Thank you.
I don't think Jeremy Hull is here. Am I right? I am right. Okay. And then so you'd also be voting for 2 out of the 5 candidates. And then we're going to finish off with Johnny Frost.
Thanks. Good evening, everyone. I am Johnny Frost. I just want to remind folks, I'm running for town council, but as village individuals, you can also vote for town folks. I'm a dedicated community advocate, and I have a passion for creating positive change. I'm very proud to be a resident of the town of Warsing, and I'm committed to serving our community and addressing the pressing issues that matter to you most. My background is in business development, and I have a proven track record of building successful relationships that have equipped me to tackle the challenges that we face. As the Global Director of Business Development for a division of Ford Motor Company, I've spent my career building strong relationships with clients and stakeholders, and that is a skill that will be invaluable in forming partnerships and alliances to address our town's issues. But it's not just about business for me. I serve as the Vice President of the Coalition of Forward Facing Ellenville, which is a testament to my commitment to the people of our community. I understand the importance of listening to you, engaging with you, and actively addressing your concerns. For me, leadership is not just a title, it is a responsibility. My experiences in both business and community organizing have equipped me with the skills needed to be a strong and effective leader for the town of Warsing. I stand before you today with a clear vision of our future and a set of campaign pillars that will guide my work. Firstly, I believe in access to and transparency of information with our government. I will implement proactive measures to ensure our community is informed and empowered in the decision-making process. Secondly, I'm committed to building a future-forward economic development plan. With my expertise in business development, I will work tirelessly to ensure our community is attractive to new businesses and that we grow our tax base to continue to support the critical services needed in our community today. Thirdly, our youth and elderly deserve our support. I will prioritize their needs by working and improving services for them, including advocating for after-school programs and senior centers. Fourthly, access to affordable and safe housing is a basic human right. As a part of the economic development plan, I will work to increase the availability of such housing units and address the issue of substandard housing. And lastly, I'm dedicated to preserving the natural beauty of the community that we live in today and will advocate for the conservation and efforts and ensure all of our parks and recreational areas are well maintained and accessible to all. Together, I do believe we can shape a better Warsing, and I'm humbled and honored to be given the opportunity to run for your support. I ask for your support in this journey and look forward to seeing you out at the polls, like Joe said, starting 28th and through November 7th. Thank you.
Going to appreciate that we're getting out of here on time so that they don't have to pick us with the show later. Come back to the show. Thank you so much for coming. I hope that this has been informative and will help you vote at the polls. And again, thank you for your support of the Strong Out Journal. And have a great